Anybody who's received a cancer diagnosis, the worst thing that can happen to them is waiting for the next stage. You think the worst, you feel the worst. And the thing I did, I Googled. And when you Google, the internet gives you all this ovarian cancer patients live as long as 2 years. So to me, I was doomed. And I feel that that emotional trauma could have been avoided had I gone from the scan to the MRI to the biopsy to the treatment plan.
So when I was diagnosed with lung cancer, it was extremely difficult. I mean, it's really important as a deaf person with cancer that we have access to a BSL interpreter. Because when you find out you are ill, if you don't have an interpreter, this is going to affect your mental health. You just think, oh well, I might as well just give up. What's the point? No one cares.
I worked really, really hard to be treated by a hospital I knew had really good cancer care. But I know people who waited months just to get a scan. And, it's really sad that there are people who didn't have that support.
I was rushed to hospital because I was having seizures. I have no memory of that period of time. But my brother was there, and he told me I'd been left half naked there, having seizures when I first arrived. I don't know why anyone wasn't treating me. They should have been aware that I'm fully deaf.
As a GP, I often have patients coming to me who will be asking for additional support, who find that their care is being fragmented and they may be having to repeat their story many times to different people who they meet along their pathway.
It's really unfair. In comparison, it should be equal for deaf and hearing people. They should have equal rights and equal access.
I was told by the surgeon that they might need to insert what's called a colostomy. So I ended up with the stoma. I named her Chloe because she's a colostomy. Now it is a big deal. You're changing how your body functions completely. I had to have counselling to help me understand the most important thing is that I'm alive and that Chloe is keeping me alive. It took me nearly 3 months to be comfortable-ish, to change my stoma and go out. But I do think that what if I didn't have the counselling that I received? I think I'd still be lying in bed today, waiting for Dan to come, my partner, to come home from work to change Chloe, who would have been looking like a balloon.
We have to remember that 2 in 3 patients with a cancer diagnosis will have another long-term condition. And that may affect how the cancer gives them symptoms, but also the effect of their treatment. So we need to be thinking continually along that pathway. How can we minimise those physical effects?
Your body goes through so much. It's almost beaten up to a pulp. You then think, oh my gosh, I've still got bills to pay. I still need to buy food. I still need to get to and from hospital appointments. Dan was incredible. He had to take 6 months off of work just to care for me. But that meant we didn't have any income coming into our household. And it was at that point that we reached out to Macmillan. We were given an injection of finances to help us. And I feel like without it, actually I couldn't think about where or what would have happened. I just can't, actually.
The financial burden of having a cancer diagnosis can be huge, and unfortunately there's not a standardised approach to the support that can be provided for patients to help meet those financial needs.
I met someone in the medical day unit when I was having chemo. He didn't even have the support to tell him what comes next. He was petrified. He didn't have his family around him. He felt so alone that it pushed him to stop his treatment that could have saved his life.
Every patient has unique practical needs. I have patients who struggle to even get to their appointments, patients who have declined going into hospital, for instance, because they're worried about how they're going to have their pet looked after, or that they just physically don't feel confident to leave their home.
For me, it was Dan, my partner, who is my hero, my rock, my everything. He did things for me that I didn't think were possible to do for another human being. If he wasn't here, I really don't think I would be speaking to you right now. And so my heart does actually go out to people without a Dan in their lives and without supportive family members, because I would love to know how do they do it? Where do they go? Who lifts them up?
One of my friends that is deaf, she has cancer, and she was involved in a deaf cancer support group. And this cancer support group really lifted that burden from my shoulders and made me feel determined to keep going and keep positive. They were really there when I needed them. That's why I'm feeling emotional now. Yeah, I wish I'd had them from the start.
My hopes for the future is that every patient who's diagnosed with cancer has a holistic assessment at the time of their diagnosis, that they feel that they are listened to and that they have a care plan and then ongoing support through and after their cancer journey. That the information that's gathered from those holistic conversations is shared with the wider team, not just within secondary care but within primary care. And that for those patients with greatest need, we're doing additional support in different ways to match their needs.